Welcome to Flip the Script with Vic, a sacred space for honest, unfiltered, and sometimes taboo conversations between women walking the path of truth, healing, and soul remembrance. What started as my personal exploration has become a communal prayer, a podcast devoted to amplifying women's stories in their own words. I'm your host, Victoria Nielsen, intuitive healer, mama, and space holder for the divine feminine. Here, we gather as cycle breakers, mothers, mystics, creatives, witches, and wild ones, flipping the script on what it really means to be a woman in today's world. Through raw interviews, intimate solo casts, and brave conversations, we'll chat about motherhood, mysticism, psychedelics, spirituality, and more. You'll be reminded that your voice matters, that your truth matters, that you're here to walk in beauty. So be the prayer, and let's flip the script. Are you ready? Let's jump on in. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Flip the Script with Vic. It's your host, Victoria Nielsen. I am so excited to be here, as always, to just chat with another woman who is doing amazing things in the world. Today, I have Tori Lubecki, and I'm so excited because she's so multifaceted. She is an acrobat, a performer, a chef, a yoga teacher, a pottery artist, like a true creative, I feel like, Tori. And we have such a fun fact that I wanted to chat about today that Tori didn't even know. But I wanted to say welcome and thanks for coming on the pod.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I'm glad we finally were able to put this together. I know we've been kind of trying for a while, so happy to be doing this with you.
Yay, I'm glad it finally aligned. But Tori and I met, probably 2 years ago now in an online community. And immediately I was drawn to her energy just because you have such a grounded presence, but also because of your history as an acrobat in Cirque du Soleil. So my dad, growing up, I always joked, he went to circus in college and stuff like that and ended up becoming more of a rigger than an acrobat. But I grew up doing ragdoll and other acrobatic beats, as just part of growing up. So to hear that you worked at Cirque and he was there for 20 years, I grew up at La Nuba. I've seen that show so many times. It's crazy. So tell me, how did you start? Were you always kind of a performer and an acrobat? Was that the ultimate dream?
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, when I was two, I should specify, I saw the video or maybe on TV or whatever. It was Gelsey Kirkland and Baryshnikov performing the Nutcracker. It came out when I was two. And I don't know, my mom must have noticed that I loved it and got the video or something because I watched it nonstop and I wanted to be Gelsey Kirkland. So I became a very serious ballerina at 2 years old. And of course, my mom took me to kids ballet, right? And we were hopping like bunnies and pretending to be frogs. And I was like, this is not ballet. And I was pretty frustrated. So I quit for a few years. I retired, went back around 5. And then they started it gets a little more serious. They start training us. So I was in ballet hardcore for about 20 years. I was dancing professionally. I did when I was younger, I did all styles of dance. And then I was really gifted at ballet. So that was kind of the direction that my path went. And I had the best training because I was serious about it, so I was given a lot of scholarships. We were kind of poor growing up. We didn't, I was raised by a single mom. So we didn't have money. Yeah, we didn't have money for ballet, but I would get scholarships. So I had really good training. I went to a fine arts school. I went to Joffrey Ballet in the summers when I was, a little a kid.
The life that I wanted, but I was never serious about being a ballerina.
Oh my God, I was so serious.
But I was like, oh, that would be so cool. And then I was not as dedicated.
Oh man, it's all discipline. It's so much discipline. You have to really want to be there every day. So my childhood was just spent inside of a ballet studio and I got really serious about that. I was dancing professionally when my grandmother took me to see a Cirque du Soleil show. I had never seen it before. I was probably about 20 years old-ish at the time. And I was like, are you serious? Is this a real job? Are these people getting paid?
Back when there was only a few shows too.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a few select ones before they got everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. This was back in the day. I don't know for sure how many shows they actually had, but this was a resident show that had been there for a few years. And it was called, sorry, I just lost it. It was at the Bellagio in Biloxi. and it was called
I can
Alegria.
see the like logo of it in my head. Like,
It was
yeah.
Alegria. Sorry, I don't know why I just like had a like brain melt moment, but yeah, it was Alegria, and I was aware of Lanuba but had never seen it because I lived pretty close to Florida. You know, I grew up in Mobile, and yeah, like once I saw Alegria, I just in my mind mentally I switched careers right away. But of course, it takes time. I had to learn to become an aerialist. As a ballet dancer, I had strong body and legs, but my arms were like little twigs. And so I had to learn to do a pull up and then 20, you
That
know.
arm work is hard. Like I've tried pulling
Yeah.
myself up tissue and stuff, thinking like, oh, it's no big deal. Like, hell no, I can't do that shit.
It's,
Like I get like
it's
two up
hard.
and I'm like, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah. One of the challenges that we would have in the company was like we would, once or twice a year, we would do, it's called PCA's physical capacity assessment. And as an aerialist, they would test how many pull ups you could do, how long you could hang from your arms. And then we had to do a thing where you have a rope and you're climbing hand over hand, but you can't use your legs. So your
So you
legs
have
are
to
like
go
either,
out in like 90-degree
yeah,
angle, huh? Like
either
that way.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
either straddle or pike. So the girls usually straddle the legs and just climb. And I could go about 15 feet with no legs. And then the men would do an even harder challenge, which is they would pike their legs in front. And as they were climbing, they would coil the rope up on their legs. So as they're pulling, their legs are getting heavier and heavier because that rope is heavy. It's thick, you know? And so the higher they go, and they would go to the top and then they would come back down unraveling the rope off of their lap. So yeah, you have to have a lot of upper body strength. But yeah, once I got strong enough and learned enough things, I kept auditioning for the company, finally got in, spent over a decade on a resident show here in Vegas called Ka. I did the straps duet there. And then
I never saw that one. I had seen Oh, Love, and I want to say something else in
Miss
Vegas.
Dare, maybe.
Maybe I do know I this is such a like privileged story to even tell that like coming back from Coachella one year, my dad had got me tickets to see the Michael Jackson one.
Mhm.
And I was so like hungover, tired, whatever, that I was like, no, I'm not going. And so like I missed it completely, like and just gave up the tickets, which makes me sad. But
I have a friend who just went to it last week. She had never seen it before, and she's a huge Michael Jackson fan and said she cried. It was the best show she's ever seen. You know, she just was so moved by it. And, you know, it kind of depends on what your vibe is. Like Michael
yeah.
Jackson was
I
not
just
my
saw Michael
favorite.
Jackson though, so now I'm like, rub salt in the wound, Tori.
Yeah.
Thanks. Like, I'll just have to go
Yeah,
back.
just come back out here.
And so now, you know, I know you are obviously not performing as much, but I feel like that performer gene doesn't go anywhere. And I know you've talked openly on Instagram about like how you become okay with not always performing, or I guess making friends with that side of yourself and realizing like it's always going to be a part of you. How has that been since kind of retiring from the stage?
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I actually don't perform at all anymore, but I miss it like crazy because it's in my heart. It's like part of who I am. And going through my retirement, which was forced on me, I had to have two shoulder surgeries, two hip surgeries all in the same year. And it was a career ender, you know, but I wasn't ready for the party to be over. And when you're there, you know you're living in this like glamorous bubble and the bubble will burst. But I still as much as I knew it was coming, I wasn't ready. And so the way that I kind of, yeah, like I still miss it. I still kind of dream of getting back on stage in some capacity. Is the sound okay, by the way? Is the
Yeah.
sound okay? Okay, somebody's vacuuming right outside. I just wanted to make sure you could hear me okay.
No, I can't hear it shockingly.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So, yeah, so essentially like I do have some performance opportunities, which is that I do vegan demos now. So sometimes I'm on stage performing how to cook vegan food. And I also teach yoga, which is kind of a performance because you choreograph this whole sequence and you're delivering a monologue and you're, you know, like you have people's attention. So I get a little taste of like still being sort of on stage, but and I do a lot of podcasts, so this is like another sort of element of performance. But I do feel that in the future there is something that's going to get me back on stage because I mean I love attention. You know, I love having a spotlight, and honestly, even when I'm practicing yoga, I perform better. Like I can balance and be stronger, and like everything looks better if someone is watching me. My
I
practice when I'm
love
in a room,
that. I
it's
love
wild. And
like,
yoga
and
is
then
not.
do you think it's just unique to you or just because you were a performer for so long?
I think it's, yeah, it's because I was a performer, because yoga is not performative, but I am. So when I do yoga, I make it beautiful, I make it balanced, I stretch the extra mile. And I've had people, like, I've actually had one teacher say to me one time, because I was stretching, I was doing like a dancer's pose, and he's like, "Oh, be humble. You don't have to go so far." And I was like, "Dude, I'm not stretching to your end range. I'm stretching to mine." And even though yoga isn't meant to be performative, it's not meant to be like someone showing off. It's an internal practice. It doesn't feel fun for me or satisfying if I don't make it beautiful. So I perform it beautifully, because that's what makes it feel good in my body, and that's what makes it fun. If I performed it lazy and sloppy, I would never go back.
No.
So
And it's like, thank you for this message of like the permission to take up space and to
yeah,
do that because I feel like I've had that said to me. I'm very hyper flexible and to the extent sometimes that I am overextending a little bit, but like I kind of have had the same from someone that was like, well, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I'm like, well, why not? Like that makes
yeah.
me feel good in my body. Like don't shame me because you can't do it. Like
Exactly. I know. I honestly just never went to that guy's class again, because, and he was the studio owner at the time. And I was just like, I don't think you get it. Like, I mean, I understand what he was saying as far as like, you're not here to show off. True.
yeah.
Right. It shouldn't matter if people are watching me or not. And frankly, like, they should be on their own mat doing their own thing. But I'm a performer. And when I, like, one time I was at a different, like, I was kind of a new studio that I don't normally practice at. And they have this element at Life Power, Lifetime Fitness, like, where they teach a combination and then they just put music on. You can keep it the same or you can change it. People are doing handstands and all kinds of different stuff. So I add what I need to make it beautiful and fun. And there's a little girl in there practicing with her mom, and the little girl stops practicing and she's just like staring, right? And I can sense that she's stopped and she's watching me, and she's like stopping her mom, and she's like, "Mom, look, look." And she's like, her mom is on. And I was like, okay, I get it, why this can be disruptive. Like they should be doing their own practice. But I'm also like, it's actually, I'm doing better because I know they're watching. I didn't like break focus, I just continued as if I was on stage. Like when I'm performing, I don't look at the faces of the audience. I don't stop and say, "Oh, did you like that?" But this is an interesting point too, because as a ballet dancer, we never look at the audience. We project to the upper balconies, right?
You're like you're really performing for like the very last seat in the very last row of the audience.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
not for
And yeah, and it's like, as you're telling a story as an actor, you're not breaking that wall of like, like letting them in, because the audience is not there. You are just living as the character. You are living in that role. And so I never make eye contact with the audience. But in circus, there's a flip side of that, where the circus people, like especially circus family, like if you grew up in it, then there's this like, ta-da, clap now, give me some applause. So and you're looking right at the audience and you're like, feed me, right?
yeah.
And so
Like breaking what is it, that fourth wall where you're like, I know you're looking, like, come
yeah,
on.
give it to me. Yeah. And so there's like two kinds of performers. There's the kind of performer who's just like in their own world telling a story, not looking at the audience. And then the other performer is like eye contact and they're like, "Hey, do you see me? I'm here. Let's clap now." And so for me, the other side is cheesy, but it's part of that art form, right? And so in Ka, because it is a circus, so there is, and a lot of circus family people are in that show. So there's a lot of people who perform that way, where they do a trick and then they're like, "Ta-da!" Applaud now, applause, applause. And then there's the other half who are sort of like acting, telling a story, and they don't look at the audience because they're not there. They're not in the
Yeah.
movie with us. And it's weird that there was never kind of a breakdown of like, do it this way or this way. So it was like there was this kind of divide in the cast. I don't know if I'm the only one who noticed it, but I could always sense like half the cast is performing one way and half the cast is performing another way, and
I wonder too if it
they're
had to do with
opposites.
like the act type too, like thinking about, I feel like a lot of the aerial performers, or at least at Lanuba, were not treated differently, but we're like kind of like, ooh, you're the act everyone comes to see, whereas like the people that were on the stage or were doing more like hand or body like acrobat, I feel like felt more of that like ta-da, like look at me
Mhm.
energy. And the clowns too, a lot. I feel like always
Yeah. Well, the
they
clowns
were
play
trying to
with
like
the
move,
audience.
yeah, like to move everything along and like have everyone be involved. But it's really interesting because now I'm sitting here and I'm like, I feel like I'm the ta-da performer where I'm like,
You
look at
are.
me. And like I'm giggling as I laugh because like my dad used to do trapeze. So that was the thing that like I got to try really young that I did well when I was young, but then when I went back and did it when I was older, I was terrible and had all these
Okay.
fears. And like I was wearing socks and it slipped in the net because he caught the sock and not my foot. And I cried in front of like all of these cute boys when I was 12 and it was like terrible. And then after that, I never wanted to do a circus act ever again.
Aw.
Like, no thanks. I don't want to perform anymore. Like they didn't say
Trapeze
to
is
die.
hard.
Like
Well, they're like with trapeze with the trapeze troupe, it is that element. You swing, you do your flips, you catch, you go back to your bar, you get to your platform, and then you're like clap now. You give the audience permission. You're like, now's your cue,
yeah.
And so it is this. So you would be one of those ta-da kind of performers. And trapeze is so hard. It's so scary. You're like up there, and everything looks so far away. Looking from the bottom up, it doesn't seem that high. It seems like
No.
man.
And I have these little twig arms that I have not been doing anything. So like they hand me the bar and I'm like, ooh,
Oh, it's so
immediately because
heavy.
like this thing is so heavy. Like truly, I mean, circus performers, are some of the best in shape people I have ever met. But I wonder, like, is there anything to this whole, like, like, I feel like circus people, there's just a certain type of person that like runs off and joins the circus. And that's always my dad's joke is he like left law school to go run off and join the circus. But I feel like for you, it wasn't that. It was more, it felt like the highest level of your discipline, perhaps, like to be there versus being part of this like group of outcasts. Or was it a bit of both for you?
Well, to be honest, when I was younger, any exposure that I had to the circus would be like, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, or even like smaller family circuses like Mexican families or Russian family circus. Oh, actually, I saw this circus Balagan. It was a Russian circus a little bit prior to seeing the Cirque du Soleil show that got me hooked. And I didn't care about circus, honestly, especially the dirt floor, the horses, and all the animals and stuff. It wasn't my vibe. I was elegant. I wanted the tutu, the partner, the point shoes, the tiara, so the kind of three ring circus or one ring circus did not appeal to me at all. And then I saw Balagan, and I remember there was a little kid on stage, a little boy, and he's carrying a book around. He's the main character, but he doesn't really do anything. He's just there as, carrying the prop around. And then at the end of the show, he takes his shirt off. He's ripped. And then he does this straps act where he's like, coiling himself up and he nose dives down to the stage. And, it's so dramatic. And he's just a little kid. He's probably 9 or 10 years old because he grew up in this family. And that really inspired me. I was like, oh, I like aerial acts, apparently. Then I saw the Cirque du Soleil show, got hooked, started training. Fast forward, I don't know, 20 years, 10 years. It's hard to say. My concept of time is challenged. But anyway, I think it was 10 years later. That little boy was my partner in Cirque du Soleil. We got hired at the same time.
No
And
way.
it took us
That's
a few
crazy.
years. Yeah, it took us a few years to figure it out. But then I realized like he had come from the circus that I had seen and he had performed it. And I was like, oh, I saw you when you were a kid, So that was an interesting little time
That's like a
time
full
warp.
circle moment. I mean, to truly, I feel like show you, like, yes, you're on the right path, like you are where you're supposed to be. And now, having kind of left the stage or being forced to leave the stage, how are you finding that same passion and purpose? Is it being, channeled through your pottery or is it kind of, are you going through a rebirth at the moment?
Well, I've been through 3 rebirths since retiring. So because yeah, like I didn't want to leave the stage. I had a real existential crisis, honestly, because leaving the performance world, which is where I had been since I was a baby, I had always been on stage, and I didn't know who I was without a spotlight and without the attention and applause and signing programs. I didn't know who I was without that. And I would always, when I was in Cirque du Soleil, I would say to people, because they'd be like, oh, well, of course Tori can do the splits, or of course Tori can do a handstand. She's in Cirque du Soleil. And I'm like, let me explain something. They did not make us cool. We were the shit before we got to them. The artists make the company cool. Like, right, their whole reputation is held by the people that are on stage. They don't bring us in and then make polish us up and make us great. They only hire you if you're great. Right. So having said that many years before I had to retire, I was like, okay, do I actually believe that? Because if I believe that, then I can reinvent myself into the cool person that I think I am without needing the clout of having that name recognition of Cirque du Soleil behind me or on my resume or whatever. So I knew I needed to go in a new direction. So I went to culinary school, then I went to vegan culinary school and vegan pastry school because I'm vegan. And was like, people are like, oh, you'll be a chef. And I was like, no, I don't really want to be a chef. I maybe want to write cookbooks or do food demos, teach cooking. I don't want to work in a restaurant. It's too much labor. It's for young people. I need a little more ease in my life. So I kind of started doing food demos like with conventions and food festivals. And I work with a crew of people that were all really good friends. And we kind of travel around and do different events together. Actually, one is happening right now in Las Vegas. And so, yeah, so a few times a year I'll do a food gig, but that turned out to not actually be the path. So I also became a yoga instructor and I love yoga, right? So I thought, oh, it makes sense when I'm inspired by a yoga class. I want to give that experience to people. So I started teaching yoga. Now I teach every single day. And I'm kind of burning out on it, honestly, because the more you teach, the less you practice. And I'm in love with the practice. I just teach because no one pays me to practice, right? So, so I teach because I must pay my mortgage. But it was only in September of last year that I discovered pottery, and I knew that I was like kind of dying slowly, that I had no love in my life, there was no passion, no purpose. And I just kind of, honestly, I had a dream about raku firing. Like, there was a big fire and someone's pulling a vessel out of the fire and taking these chunks off of it, and it was like iridescent and looked like a dragon egg or something. And in the dream they were saying, oh, this is called raku firing. And I was like, raku, that was the name of my favorite restaurant. It's like a Japanese restaurant here in Vegas. And when I woke up, I just remembered all those details. Now, I don't know anything about pottery or how you fire different glazes and stuff, but I looked up raku and it's a real thing. And it's exactly like it was in the dream, where you use like combustible materials and it creates a fire. And it's very unpredictable. And I'm a very precise person. I'm very deliberate. So I need an element of unpredictability to keep me slightly off balance so that I can
You know
rebalance
what
myself.
in your chart is your astrology? What's your astrology?
I mean, I'm a Virgo,
Mm,
and
the Earth
yeah,
and control.
control. Yeah,
You know,
I
I'm
think I,
wondering if it helps bring that, like you said, that fire, the spark, because we need the balance of all the elements in our lives, and so if we don't have them in like our astrological charts, the life, I feel like, will try and balance them for you. Whether it's finding you a business partner that has like the elements that you don't have, or perhaps to your point, bringing in this like pottery and this raku firing, because it's not the glaze, is it? So I did pottery when I was younger, but when you're glazing and firing it, that's not raku, or
not
what's the
Raku.
difference? Okay.
So yeah, like, so basically, like, it's raku is kind of rare. It's not. I think it's Japanese. And there's only one place in Las Vegas that does it, but I've never actually been to that place. Um, Essentially, like, a pottery studio opened near me, and I took an intro to wheel throwing class, was immediately hooked. And so I just started doing pottery, and honestly, I do it pretty much every day if I have the time to do it. I have not done the raku firing yet, but the step one is just have something to put in the fire. right? You have to like make a piece first. And so because they don't do rakufa, I'm at my pottery studio now, like they don't do it here. So I'm going to create some pieces to take across town to this other place that does sometimes do it as like a special event. But yeah, just learning to work with clay. And I've known other potters. I went to fine art school, so I knew sculptors, and it never occurred to me that this would be something that I would love. But when I used to bake, something about having your hands in dough is very therapeutic.
Oh,
And
so
it really,
your hands are activated. Like all of these pieces that I don't know why, like channel guidance is just coming in for you right now if you're open to it. But basically, there's three special pieces that you should make. You know what they are. One is more of like a glass or like a vase or something to pour from. One needs to be blue, and yeah, that they're like meant to help you do some future work in the world. So they're
okay, so wait, a pouring vessel, something that's blue. And what's the third one?
I don't know. That one seems like it's just like you do whatever comes to mind.
Okay, okay. Well, since I've gotten hooked on pottery, I have made, I don't know, maybe 65 pieces that each one of them I'm obsessed with every single piece that I make. It's like a little baby that I carry around like, like it's my child.
It
And
is. They have a little bit of like your magic, your little imprint on them.
yeah, like even like I made this piece for my mom for her birthday, and it looks like a pie, but it's a fruit bowl. And every like around the, how like the edge of a pie crust is like pinched,
Oh yeah,
so
it's
it's
like a
got this
crimped
little,
look.
yeah, that little crimped look. Like each one of those spots is my fingerprints. And my mom has like the same tiny little fingers, and she can pinch it exactly where I pinched it. And she also is obsessed with the piece. When I gave it to her, she was completely speechless, which doesn't happen to her often, ever that I've seen. And she was just like, "Did you make this?" And I said, "Yeah." And she was like, "Can I keep it?" And I was like, "Mom, yes, it's your birthday present." But yeah, like I am completely obsessed. And now I actually teach pottery. Like it took me no time at all to, and of course, like I'm not an old pro. I'm brand new at this too, but I teach the intro to wheel throwing class now. And I certainly have enough information to guide beginners to create a piece, and I've had a few friends take my class and they're like, "Oh my God, you're such a good teacher. This is the perfect avenue for you." And I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I would love to be just a full-time artist. Um, because it's like this is when I'm here, this is when I feel like I'm mostly in the zone and kind of in a flow state where things just come together, and it's like it's exhilarating to see the idea arrive and then how it evolves until the finished piece happens. And it's also this huge practice of non-attachment, because at any point along the way you can destroy the piece, right? It may not make it to the end stage. And I've had pieces where I finished, loved them, took them home, and on the first time I'm using them, I drop it in the sink and it's broken. So it's like you can love the thing hard. Don't get too attached. Nothing is forever. But then I'll like take it and I'll kintsugi it back together with gold. So then I got this reformed piece that I love again. So it's been a
There's so much
fascinating
here for you.
practice.
Like I'm really excited for you because I think this is exactly where you're supposed to be in that flow state that you were talking about. Like you are weaving magic with your hands, and I think this is meant to show you that you're more than just your body. You are these creations that you put out in the world, and your creations up until this point have always been intangible, right? With your beauty, with your body, with your art. Now you're creating tangible pieces in the world. So take that to heart because it's a really beautiful thing, and it is really special every time you make something because you're putting a piece of yourself in it. So charge your worth. You should start charging for some of
Yeah.
these things, by the way. But
Yeah.
because you are an artist, you are like claim it
Yeah.
forever. You are. And I'm just so excited. Are you? If folks want to find you, are you in Vegas now for a while, or I know like you kind of travel about a bit? What's kind of coming up next for you, and how can folks get in touch?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have a website, torilubecki.com. It's just my name. And I do offer yoga retreats a couple of times a year. Last year, I did a yoga teacher training in Bali. I was supposed to have one this year, but the money didn't allow. So hopefully next year that will come back in. And yeah, the yoga retreat, like I try to do 2 or 3 per year, but last year they were challenging to sell. And, the economy is changing. People are a little scared about traveling, about spending money. So this year I pulled it back to one. It sold out in like 2.5 weeks. So with that one, I know. So I was like, oh, maybe I could have done two, but I'm not going to be greedy. I'm just going to keep it as is. But yeah, like when I host yoga retreats or do any kind of yoga events, that will be on my website. Also, my social media is all under my name, Tori Lubecki. And what else? Oh, yeah, I'm right now. I teach every single day. I teach at 5 studios in Vegas, and I'm going to start pulling back. It's too much. I'm going to start pulling
Yeah,
back
I'm
from
like,
in
that sounds like
studio
a
classes.
lot.
It's insane. It's really insane. So I'm gonna pull back on the amount of classes I'm teaching in studio and open up my schedule for some private clients, like maybe 3 or 4, and then I can have more time to do what I want, which is art. And yeah, like you were saying, I loved this idea that I used to make intangible art and now it's tangible because my whole life I've always considered myself an artist, but I've been the art. And now I make something and I can keep it, I can give it to people, and it's wildly satisfying. So yeah, it's been a great transition, I think.
I love that. Well, thank you for being here. And you guys go give Tori a follow on Instagram. Like she said, it's just her name, Tori Lubecki. She's always posting really cool artistic photos or just sharing where you are in the world, whether you're like riding a motorcycle somewhere or cooking at an expo. I love seeing where the world takes you. And thank you. I don't know if there's anything else on your heart today that just feels like it wants to come through to be shared with anyone listening.
um what else is on my heart today? I think, I mean, I have no other, like, there's nothing else I need to promote, but I guess what I would say to your listeners is just be nice. This world is desperate for more compassion, more understanding, more forgiveness, more friendliness. And that's really what I encourage through my teaching and through how I live in the world. I try to lead by example, is just always being someone who is just kind.
I love that. I end every episode telling my listeners to be good to one another. So that seems like
Yay.
a perfect segue to end. If you guys have liked this conversation, please like, rate, subscribe, review the podcast. The more women all over the world that hear these conversations, the more that we can expand as healers, leaders, guides, women, humans, beings in the world. Thank you so much for being here. Be good to one another. I love you. Mwah.